Hi, Mike. Welcome to Rugby Lives, and thanks for having us in Bedford. Did you ever think you would stay here for this many years?
No, absolutely not. I came here, shook hands with the chairman, Jeff Irvine at the time, never saw a contract, never signed a contract, and I still haven't signed one. So, felt amazing just be running on the pitch and getting my first cap. Next thing you know, we're in the changing rooms, and I got a big smile on my face, and I'm looking around thinking, I shouldn't be smiling at you. We've probably just been knocked out of the World Cup. What are they afraid of? What are the Prem afraid of? They should give them a chance to go in there, and if they fall on their face, they fall on their face. Why can't I work in Cornwall, Coventry, Doncaster, got a good stadium? You can't tell me they've run their models correctly because there's 30 odd million pounds of the debt amongst the lot of them.
Hi, Mike. Welcome to Rugby Lives, and thanks for having us in Bedford. Lovely day, great ground as well.
Yeah, never rains in Bedford, as you can see. Pitch is in great condition, and for this time of year. So we're enjoying this weather at the moment.
And the season, second as well.
Yeah, currently second. Remarkable, really, given the sort of small squad we operate on. But the lads have proven once again what a tight-knit bunch they are, and I think that's probably one of the secrets of our success is having continuity amongst the group and building them connections over several seasons.
How many seasons you've done there? You joined what 2005, was it?
Yeah, I'm coming to the end of my 21st season. Yeah.
Jesus, that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, it is looking back, I suppose. But when you're in it doesn't seem that long. Just guess it becomes part of a routine that you get used to, and without becoming complacent, obviously. And I suppose striving for a slightly different outcome this year, which is playoffs, has given it a new impetus, really. So, still a sleepless nights, but thankfully we've secured either a home quarter-final or a home semi-final now, depending on the next couple of games.
Can anyone actually go up this year? Because it's still only Doncaster that are actually sort of promotion approved, aren't they?
I think Doncaster outside the top six. So
yeah,
if they got to the top six and they managed to win through to the final, I assume that's still in play, that they get a chance to play off against the bottom side in the Prem. But who knows? I'm not sure if that's been taken away yet until next season. So
I think in theory next year, and I think unfortunately Doncaster haven't really been able to pull up any trees this season.
No, although they give us a real hiding at their place, so the potential is there for them to go on a bit of a run, but I think it's looking unlikely that they'll do that. So probably the honest answer is no. Ealing looking really strong again this year, but it's great for the rest of us to really have a crack at them. If we do get through to semi-final or final in a one-off game, that's the beauty of this playoff system now. They're all one-off games, and anything can happen on a day.
I think that's the great thing. That's obviously happening all the way down the leagues now, this playoff system, right down to sort of regional 2 and 1, where the second and third team get a chance of promotion for them as well. Do you think that's where the game kind of needs to go now, so that actually Champ Rugby is what every club in the league is kind of aspiring to?
Yeah, I think that's what we got to put all our eggs in that basket, is that jeopardy piece, whether it's at the top or it's not at the top of the Champ, but certainly top of that one. It's looking a great competition this year, and whoever wins that comes straight up. But then the second team plays off against the 12th or 13th in our division. So there's real jeopardy around that, and seems to be quite a lot of interest around that. And if that carries on down the leagues, and we're the highest league that all the other clubs can aspire to be in, then it gives our league a bit of kudos to say we're probably the best, or can be the best club in England. If you end up,
you're right in the banner already.
well, yeah, because we're not going to be part of that franchise system, foreseeable future. So why not aspire to be the best team in England at the highest level you can play?
And it makes sense, because it means those that are looking like Coventry, for example, they're putting a lot of money into their infrastructure, that they can actually properly bid for it. And why wouldn't the Premiership want someone like Coventry? They've invested to create that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, there's still an element of ambition to be had. God only knows how many if Universal Studios really takes off in Bedford, whether there's an opportunity for us to, so we can all to aspire and dream towards that. Or I think the reality is what current situation here in particular is we've got we've had a sound foundation for a number of years, and the current board continued to operate in that vein, and we put on hopefully a really good product for the people of Bedford, and we're averaging over 3,000 this year. But it's all about trying to make it sustainable, isn't it? And I believe that to do that, you've got to get a few more thousand through the gate to be able to do that. So you're not relying on any one pot of money somewhere. But that's not to say that Red Bull, Universal, or whoever comes in can make that work, and and sides around the country can pop up and get in and have a crack at that 10 team, 12 team, 20 team franchise,
whatever it is. But I think, and if you look to the potential as well, like I said, you have had like good crowds as well. Your Boxing Day games, they're like 5,000 or something.
5,500 this year.
So that's comparable with some Premier teams as well. So actually, when they look at a proposition, you guys, competing near the end, maybe Universal Studios.
Well, I think that point's been made. I mean, we're probably the only club in the UK that actually posts a small profit or breaks even, and we're on target to do that again. So why wouldn't you invest in somewhere that's on stable footing, as opposed to going in and picking up several £1 million worth of debt? So we are, I guess, we're open for some investment. Just depends what that looks like and the timing of it.
And you could get someone here on a Boxing Day with, I don't know who you play. Is it always amped till a regular?
Well, it depends. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. We play Boxing Day, to be honest, because it's just a big day out for the people of Bedford.
Yeah.
There's, as I say, 5,500 people in here, 2,500 not even watching, because they're all here on a social occasion, and it's great to see. Families with the children either playing on the training pitch over there, or even just pushing up down on a drive, having a drink, catching up with close family and friends. So it's more a social occasion, really, on Boxing Day. And actually, we don't want it against local rivals, because we can sell it to sides who don't bring many people here. We can, for us, we can, easily sell Ampthill or Coventry or Cambridge, as has been a lot easier than some of the sides who travel distances to play on normal days. If they come on Boxing Day, we'd fill the ground anyway.
Oh, did you ever think you would stay here for this many years? Like, I mean,
No, absolutely not. I mean, I couldn't tell you where I was going to end up, but I came here, and it's been said many times. I came here, shook hands with the chairman, Jeff Irvine, at the time, signed a heads of agreement for a 3-year deal. Never saw a contract, never signed a contract, and I still haven't signed one. So, that works for me, and that worked for the club, and that's the way it's operated on. But every year that's gone past, the question is always asked, where are you going to end up? But I've never thought too far ahead in that sense, and just keep preparing the lads on a weekly basis, and suddenly the year end comes, and I've already assembled a squad for next year, and we roll on. So as I said, I've never taken it for granted, but we've been settled here for a number of years, and I can't tell you what's around the corner. I love going back to Wales, obviously seeing the family back there, but that's changed incredibly, particularly in Cardiff. It's a completely different city, and people ask me where all the bars are to go these days, and I couldn't tell them, to be honest. I could have 20 years ago, but I've got a clue where they all are now. I even drive up the wrong street. So it's always been $1 million question, but I couldn't tell you what's happening next year, let alone where my future lies in a couple of years.
Is it the fact that, just because you've always worked on this sort of part-time model for a long time now, is it because you've always got to reinvent the squad? Because presumably every year you've got a certain amount of churn, just because if you create some great players, which you have done over the years, you lose those, and then that's what keeps you interested, presumably.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an element of it, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's not just the players. The Champ has always worked on probably a 2-year cycle. I've been fortunate to keep a lot of lads here for a bit longer than that. But it's coaches as well. So we've had S&C guys who've gone on to work in the Premiership. We've had other coaches like Nick Walsh, coached England 20s to a World Cup. Ian Vass, who's coached here via links with Saracens. and we managed to do that across a whole lot of staff. So I had Martin Hines here for a long time. He was a great pal of mine, and he spent 10 years with me, and he's off doing other things. So recently we had a few more forwards coaches come through the door, and some backs coaches as well. So it is definitely the people and them changing, not by accident really, not by design, and squads of players, as you say, continue churning out. That's just, I guess, kept it fresh. It's not my voice all the time. It's different voices, and S&C is probably the one that's probably churned over every few years, which has helped, especially with barking at the lads during the summer. When you're trying to get the best out of them. But I think, sort of going back to the original question, really is it's hard to plan in a championship because the like we're going through at the moment, the goalposts move not just every couple of years or every year. It seems to be mid-season after, or used to be across 20 years. It's always been the same. Hopefully now we've got a little bit of sort of solidity in that sense, and we know where we're going to be operating from in the next couple of years. So although I believe the funding agreement is only till 2028, so we got
Who knows next?
yeah, who knows what's after that. But
it needed a line in the sand, didn't it? Because this was rumbling on, and it felt like you rebrand the championship, but actually no one knows what that looks like.
No.
And those decisions, in theory, you'd want them together to say, actually, we're rebranding, this is what it looks like, as opposed to we're rebranding and then we'll make another decision later.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's a wearing down process, but it seems to be going on for 4 or 5 years. But prior to that, even then, we had rebranding from Division 1 and 2 to Championship, and was it FDR actually, First Division Rugby was when I first come here, into the Championship, and then we had playoffs then, and it's thought, well, God, this is going to be a good model, because everything was sort of building up to that playoff situation at the end of the season, and then that got taken away because it didn't suit the one up, one down model that the Premiership wanted, because I think we almost caused an upset with Worcester one year in a semi-final, and they all got a bit scared that the team being put down to the Championship every year through relegation, they weren't going to get them back up. So they changed that model to a 2-leg playoff final, and then suddenly, I guess with COVID as well, that probably didn't help matters. But we ended back up at a playoff situation. Let's see how it goes this year. I think obviously the players have really taken to it now, and hopefully that's here to stay for a couple of years.
When you've seen all these clubs in this division on a regular basis over the years, when you look at them taking yourselves out of this, because obviously you're going to get investment from Universal, who do you look at and thinking, actually, yeah, I can see they could potentially work at the Prem at their size, just from looking at all of their things, from the fans, the people, not necessarily the players, because that's a bit more changeable, but who do you see from that group of clubs?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult question, really. I would strip back and say, I actually think Ealing have been not given a fair crack of the whip. I think they should have allowed them to go up and seen what they could do. Give whatever their model looked like. They've invested heavily in rugby at their club, and whatever you think that's right or wrong, it's up to them how they want to, build their brand and their model and where they spend their money. They should have gone up. Why not? What are they afraid of? What are the Prem afraid of? They should give them a chance to go in there, and if they fall on their face, they fall on their face. But if they survive, I mean, Exeter survived. I know you're talking about a different model there, where there was quite a big city at Exeter, and they obviously got crowds to the gate, which worked for them. And but now why can't it work in Cornwall, Coventry, Doncaster? Got a good stadium. It's just it is difficult that it's being set in certain areas with the Premiership where they've had good history there, so they've never been out of that for a long time to end up not being well supported. But you can't tell me they've run their models correctly, because there's 30 odd million pounds of the debt amongst the lot of them. So
and especially as the history of any sides, not all sides, but there's certainly been those established sides that have come down. They've gone back and they've been more successful afterwards. Both Quins and Northampton were better when they actually came back up and went on to great things.
Bristol spent a few years down here, and they've sort of flourished. But I mean, perhaps the point I'm saying is, why can't we go up? We've got a wonky pitch, but if we added another stand to it and we could get 5,000 people through the gate, why can't we go and play Premiership rugby? If we're entertaining good numbers now with the addition of good away crowds, if we can survive on a £5,000 supporter model, then and we're sustainable, I don't see the issue with that.
Especially when you look at football, the disparity is nowhere near. I mean, the disparity between champ clubs and the clubs at the bottom of the Premiership, there's not much to them when you look at facilities and the stands and even crowds. So,
well, Bournemouth, a classic case, aren't they? They're off field. I don't think they got good facilities, but their stadium only holds 15,000. I believe.
We had Luton up there as well.
Well, of course, yeah. So, it can work, and they're good stories. I don't think we should dumb them down. I think they should be celebrated. Some of them stories in the less traditional stadiums.
Yeah, it was a shame because if you think of all the narratives we could have had over the last few years, I mean, who knows? We in the latest issue of Rugby Journal, we got something with Harvey over at Rotherham, who was there when Jersey collapsed. Imagine if Jersey had been able to go up, and aside from any other teams over the years, there could have been so many amazing narratives. And they could still have drawn the line in the sand now when suddenly the game's big enough so Red Bull are interested or whoever else. So it's just a lost opportunity for spreading the game, also to new areas as well that perhaps haven't been fully exposed.
Yeah, I mean, Plymouth knocking on our door to get in the champ at the moment. That's, for me, when I first came here, that was that was a great place to go and play rugby when Graham Dorr was involved in there. We were playing in front of 4,500, 5,000 down there, and there is football there through Plymouth Argyle, but it always felt like a rugby town to me. And obviously they dropped down the leagues or so, but they're showing a little bit of sign of a recovery, and they would be a great addition to the championship. And if they grew their product, Plymouth's a big place as well. So, one in terms of spreading geography and stuff like that, then could be a good story. Well, obviously, Yorkshire and the north of England are probably missing, champ, one more champ team or another Prem team sandwiched between Sale and Newcastle, I guess. So, growing the game would be great to have something up there. However, there's lots of other good stuff going on in and around it. I mean, we're sandwiched between, Sally's down the bottom, Northampton there, and Leicester up the top. So it's quite a hot bit of rugby.
Surviving.
Yeah, and we are, and we're doing our best here, and obviously Coventry are not too far away as well.
And gonna go right back to the beginning. So your rugby life kind of started obviously in Cardiff, but specific Land of North. Now I know Land of North. I used to play for them myself back in the day. Explain to me Land of North as a club and the clubhouse. What does this place look like?
Yeah, well, it was just a place on the end of the street where I grew up. Really, starting off with a tiny little lounge bar and a small bar with some change rooms at the back. But the beauty of it was right next to Haley Park, Field of Dreams, where I grew up trying to emulate the great sides of the individuals of the 70s there, being Phil Bennett or Gareth Edwards in the afternoon, running around kicking a ball around. But the actual club itself is a pretty dingy place, pretty dark and dingy. No windows in the bar, which is quite bizarre. But it has its own unique atmosphere, and it survived quite a long time. I'm actually president there now as well. So
congratulations!
Yeah.
It's still got the Skittle Alley at the end as well.
Yeah, still got the Skittle Alley.
Because it just looked like, I was saying earlier, it looks just like an innocuous sort of terrace house, really, but it wasn't a terrace house.
No, it was a donut factory, believe it or not. Years ago, that got converted. I couldn't tell you the years. I should know, really, shouldn't I? But but my mum.
What a fitting place for rugby players to come out of.
yeah, should have been a pie shop, really. Shouldn't be a pie factory. But my mum and dad lived 4 doors down when I was born, and I grew up there. My father was played there, captained there, coached their youth team, coached their senior team, was on the committee, and obviously still pops in there now and again for a beer or two. So we got strong, long links there through family, really. My uncle played there as well. And I came through when mini rugby started. So I joined the mini rugby team and playing for my school on Saturday and for the club on Sunday there. So my wife was obviously brought up just around the corner as well. So sounds a bit all very Welsh at us, don't they?
Your wife still works for you, Debs?
Yeah, she's still in the office there now. So beavering away, sorting some sort of registration or contracts out at this moment in time. So
That's incredible to have been done that for so long as well.
yeah, she's been here now probably 18 years, I think it is, as well. So took over from the late great Tony Mills, who was a stalwart of this club. Sadly passed away, a couple of years after me being here, and I obviously needed someone to work alongside me I could trust, and so obviously lots of confidential information goes through the office, and there's one person I could trust was my wife.
And you got a son who played a bit of rugby, but now basically makes a beer named after you.
Yeah, full circle, eh? Full circle. Yeah, no, he works in Crafty Devil Brewing in Cardiff there. And it's a well-rehearsed story that the two lads, Adam and Reese, started off in a back garden in their sheds making beer because they went on a brewery trip once, and it's blossomed into this great story, amazing story, and they've worked hard to keep that afloat during telling times, and now Lloyd works there, and he often brings up several samples for me.
So the key thing of this story, obviously, to link it back, is that their main beer is called Mikey Raya because a Mikey Raya was slang in Cardiff for an all-day session. So this is like an all-day IPA. So for context, that's why it's quite funny that Lloyd's ended up making the Mikey Raya. So when you were at Llandaff North, how did you? Because Cardiff is like back then as well a huge concentration of clubs all feeding through to the Cardiff side as well. How did you get spotted? Were you spotted at a young age? Were you on some kind of pathway even back then?
No, I played for Cardiff schools from under 11 through to under 15. So, I was fortunate to play for them, and stayed playing. I played for Llandaff North Youth from 15 years of age. Was quite scary going up the valleys and having the living daylights beaten out of you. But that was all part of the rugby education then, and rugby definitely became an avoiding contact game for me there.
What was the sort of things you saw when you went to those games? Like, is there any incidents that stand out from your early days?
Not really. I was at the back, out the way, really. And
that's why you're fullback.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing that stood out is on what rugby brings is, I was only a 15-year-old amongst sort of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and the lads looking after you. That was probably the best thing about it. And you had to live by your wits. So it taught me some great lessons, and how to avoid getting involved in fights and scraps stood me in good stead, really.
But then when you actually made your debut for Wales, that was almost an even more extreme version of that. Tell me about your debut.
Oh yeah, 91 World Cup. I was unfortunate to be in a World Cup squad in my own city. The World Cups were in Australia, South Africa, and I was touring Cardiff, so it was quite. But nevertheless, we were drawn in a pool with Western Samoa, Argentina, and Australia. And my first game up with Western Samoa, I was sat on a bench, and they just went around absolutely smashing people. I think we lost 2 or 3 players early on. Phil May, Richie Collins, and then Tony Clement got injured at fullback through huge tackle by Apollo Pellerini, and unfortunately for him, but fortunate for me, I was able to come on and make my debut in Cardiff. So,
what are you thinking when you're on the sidelines? Because this was history being made in the worst possible way for a Welsh person.
Well, I never thought like that. I mean, obviously, I thought I could, if I had a chance to get on and make a difference, and that's what you're doing. You're living in a moment, and felt amazing just to be running on the pitch and getting my first cap, getting on a couple of touches on the ball, and next thing you know, we're in the changing rooms, and I got a big smile on my face, and I'm looking around thinking, I shouldn't be smiling here. We've probably just been knocked out of the World Cup, and it was a bittersweet moment, I guess. But fortunately, I was able to made my full run-on debut against Argentina on the Wednesday and kicked a penalty. So I'm 1 for Wales, 100%. And then I came off the bench against Australia in the last game, but we was already out by then. And there's the year Australia went on to win the World Cup, so we played against an incredible Australian team at the time. And although we beat Argentina, we needed to beat Australia to go through, and that was a step too far, really.
What was the aftermath of that defeat? Because
I tell you, one of the aftermaths was played against Australia on a Saturday, and I was in Cardiff Rugby Club on Sunday having a drink with my parents with my daughter in my hand. So I played in the World Cup the one day, and I'm in my rugby club the next day, which is quite. When I look back, that was the most surreal part of it.
yeah,
It was you've been dumped out of the World Cup, and you're back amongst people where you come from, But
yeah,
sadly, that was a short experience of the World Cup.
yeah. Because it was. I mean, I've spoken to a few people. But Mark Gring was one who was kind of involved as well, and it's like the repercussions and the grief people got as well. And
Yeah. Well, the reason I took the kick a goal because Mark had missed so many, so he wasn't too happy about giving the ball up to take a kick a goal. But yeah, just managed to put it down and kick it through. Look, it was a great experience. I joke about it being in my home city. It was a great bunch of lads there, and we had a great time in each other's company, really. So it was a fantastic experience. I never got to experience that on foreign shores, really.
because it was a tough time generally for sort of Wales, but then for Cardiff it was sort of different gravy. Well, tell me about the Cardiff side you were involved with.
Yeah, fortunately, I say fortunately, but we've been through a really barren period for a couple of years, which ignited the desire to get a world class coach in, and we were so fortunate that group at that time that Alec Evans from Australia came over and took the reins, and he brought some good people in there: Terry Holmes, Alan Donovan, and Charlie Faulkner. He had a great coaching group around, recruited some really good players. And we went on an amazing few years journey, including Alec took us on a great club trip to Australia on tour as well, which was unique at the time because sides just weren't doing that. So as well as winning the cup and the league, we built some great memories as a core group of people, and most of them lads are still my best mates back in Wales now.
Because even from that through to the very early days of the Heineken Cup, why do you think Cardiff have not been able to sort of sustain anything? Like when you're looking there as a fan, like why it feels like Cardiff should always have been sort of near the top, but obviously it's proven more difficult with the professional.
Well, I think that first year we got to the final, we were pretty fortunate there was no English sides in it as well, so that made the route to the final a little bit easier. But yeah, it's how do you sustain success in it, and there's probably no, and similarly in a lot of successful environments, you don't plan for the future too well because you live in the moment and you enjoy them moments. Obviously when Alec went, he never quite replaced a coach of his caliber, although Teddy did come back and did a good job for a couple of years. But with the game going professional, probably there was a lot of it became results driven, and if you didn't make a final or you weren't in the top four of the league, then it seemed like you were for the chop as a coach. So there was probably no continuity and consistency over them few years.
Although obviously, we've seen even yesterday the news that they're not going to buy Cardiff after all, and then we had the brief stint with Hollywood when we're like, is the guy from Ozark gonna start to write a Wrexham story for rugby? It gets people excited though, doesn't it? It's like, it's a shame that wasn't the deal that kind of ended up getting ticketed, and instead we have.
Yeah, I'm sitting from a long way away. I did never think that Y11 deal was ever going to go through. For whatever reason, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it just didn't look right to me. And the Martin Ryan deal with the Hollywood ones looked quite exciting. And I think it's probably worth taking a risk on that because it'll certainly raise the profile. And even if it just does generate a bit of interest in the short term, I think that'll stand in good stead in the long term. But who knows?
It's just more exciting. You had Hollywood. There was also the guy who's involved with Von Dutch, I think it was. Got a Rhino ball in front of us. Thanks, Rhino, for the balls. The guy involved with Rhino was also part of it. It just felt like a bit of a. It ticked a lot of boxes, and it would have been exciting. But it's just, I think, because there's never any certainty that comes from Welsh rugby. It just leaves us everything open to speculation. That's why even we're talking because we don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I've been nonplussed by it all, to be honest. It's quite disheartening what's happened to the national team over the last few years. But again, talking about succession planning piece earlier, when Warren Gatland was in charge, we had some amazing players come through from a national academy into the first. We had a lot of success. Warren's there doing his job. Do you blood players in that situation when you're going for Grand Slams, World Cups? It's a hard thing to do, isn't it? And there's been a vacuum ever since he left the first time, and it hasn't been that conveyor belt of talent coming through for whatever reasons, whether it's at the taken away their national academy or perhaps not enough attention gone into the schools in Wales. It's a tough one because I know as a director rugby, head coach, whatever, that sometimes crowds and boards only care what's happening on Saturday. They don't care what's going to happen in 2 years' time, and that's the reality of professional sport.
There's a lot of that as well. Look at England after the 2003 World Cup in terms of legacy. There really wasn't one to exist in terms of the players. It's taken a long time for them to
and
get back.
I think Clive Wood would openly say that he wanted a squad there. Predominantly with 50 caps to their name when they got there, and that's probably proved right over the last few World Cups that the side that wins it has got 700 plus caps amongst their starting 15. So it's about gaining experience to be able to deliver the ultimate prize.
Is it what I've always felt in Wales? They've always over-indexed in terms of the quality of players, raw talent. It feels like there's a lot more raw talent. If you go and you play, when I was coaching minis rugby there or girls rugby, all of it, you saw, God, there's so much natural talent here. So it's just got to be nurtured. But the flip side also is I used to meet when I was in my 20s then myself, you'd meet a lot of guys in their early 20s say, yeah, I was in so-and-so academy. I was with Ospreys, Cardiff, etc. But now I don't play at all. So there's something there, isn't there?
There's a couple of things in that whole point. There's definitely talent in Wales, incredible amount of talent. But you can't put size on players, and you look at the French top 14 sides, and they're just huge men playing rugby, and it's hard to stop. I mean, so a lot of it's done in the gym, but a lot of it's just natural and size, and obviously playing numbers. So they got to pick. They're turning big men into rugby players, and we just haven't got that in Wales. The other point I want to make out of that is how keep your players in the game is important as well. And if the players are not playing post 18, and it's happening in England, post 18, stay within the game, then the whole game dies, doesn't it? And that's probably one of the areas where a lot of it needs to be addressed in rugby, as to how you keep sort of post 18 people involved in the game itself.
I think we had a chat with the Plymouth guys actually about this as well, and one of the issues was the fact that there were so many guys who were being hoovered up and saying they're part of Exeter or whatever they're being pulled. When they don't make it, that's it. They don't want to go back to Saltash Rugby Club or whoever it is and say, oh...
Yeah, there's an expectation driven, I guess, but that happens in football, doesn't it? I mean, some of these these young children that fetch into academies at 7, 8 and 9. So, the expectancy in football is still, but they still play a little bit of parks football when they're older, I think. Whether we find some sort of hybrid game that keeps them, and the bit going back to Land of North that links it all really is how do we get that clubhouse full on a Saturday again, or on a Sunday, or Friday night, or whatever it is. Whether it's finding a hybrid game but still carries the values of rugby. So I understand the concussion issues are going on and the safety issues, but the game is probably as safe as it's ever been at this moment in time. And I see we got a thriving mini and junior section here. I think it's 550 children participate in it, and I think it's the third or fourth biggest in England. So they're out there playing the game at a certain age group, but it is worrying the post 16, 18 years that we can't keep them in the game.
And I think, well, this is why we're doing something on merit table rugby at the moment. And the good thing about merit table rugby is the rules are just that bit more relaxed. You can have rolling substitutions. You only need 18 players. You don't need a big squad, which when you go into the proper league pyramid, it's a little bit different. There's too many rules. So there's something to be said about that sort of social side where actually, if, I played 2 weeks ago. I haven't played a league every couple of years, but I played the last sort of 15 minutes and it was easy enough to be able to just roll on and then come back on. And it's not as much about training. So there probably needs that social aspect that really needs to drive people into it.
Yeah, look, we were at Richmond last week and there was games going on all around, and I know they got a really strong junior section themselves. So, I mean, it can be done. Just depends what part of the world you're in, and how you keep them engaged. Obviously, it's university and people do go away. So I get all that, and it's how you get them back and attract them back and keep them coming into the club. And they do remarkably well. Richmond, they've Amptill the same, Caldy the same. They all got sort of second, third, fourth teams and thriving junior sections. So there's some great examples out there, and we should be celebrating them examples and looking at them and as to how they do a one club mentality. But obviously, for us it's difficult because we took the decision many years ago to get rid of our second team because we couldn't afford it. And I'm sure people who are watching us every week can be say that they're thankful for that because it makes us competitive because we can plough all our resources into the first team. So we are trying to do a little bit. We've got a women's section now, and obviously girls section through the juniors, and they've had another successful season. They've gone up another league, so we're growing it slowly here, and we look to other clubs to see how they maintain that sort of social side of it as well.
Because I think it's quite interesting about the way the national one is clearly become much stronger as well, and that gap between National One and Champs seems to be getting a lot smaller because look at the sides that have thrived. You just mentioned obviously Cambridge have come up, but then people like Caldy and Chinner and Amptill and all those guys they weren't sleeping giants. They were sides that have come up through and stayed, and now you're looking, if you look at the top of National One, the sides that are coming up are actually perhaps more established sides that you'd imagine Rotherham, Plymouth and Blackheath would have a good crack at holding their own too.
Yeah, for sure. And his like Doncaster got relegated, Coventry got relegated into that one, but they reinvented themselves like we said, some of the Prem sides did. Look, perhaps at infrastructure and seeing how they could sort of grow it a little bit more organically and make sure they're standing on their own 2 feet when they get to make that jump into the champ. And they got some, as you said, they got some great examples to aspire to. And they're more than competitive, aren't they? I mean, Chinner, flying at the moment. Amptill are having a great end of the season. And Caldy is probably one of the hardest places to go and try and win a rugby game because they got a passionate group of supporters on the bank there, and similarly their playing group aspire to please them. So it's there are some great stories, and obviously Cambridge sadly are going down this year. But they got relegated and then got promoted back up. So they've done a great job themselves. So it can be done. You just got to have sometimes a little bit of bottle about stripping back and understanding where you are as a club, and then building from solid foundations. And you say rugby players are rugby players. I can sign loads of rugby players, but you got to have good characters as well. So if you get the right characters and the right group together and keep them together for a couple of years, and no matter what level you're playing at, you could be competitive.
Well, going back to your playing career, like obviously if we Google my way online, obviously the 2 tries against Scotland, that's the ones that often come up. Is that the best time of your career? Your sort of when your Wales days when that Six Nations?
Yeah, probably the season before that.
Sorry.
Yeah, probably the season before that. I felt I was probably playing my best rugby 92, 93. The middle year of the Alec Evans years at Cardiff. I was just probably at the peak of my career. U94 was a good year for me, but I was sadly sat on the bench, which is why I came on. And if people remember me for that, then fine. But I got other memories that I can cherish. I scored 2 other tries for Wales. 3 actually, but one's chalked off. So I scored a 1 meter interception against Japan.
1 meter.
1 meter, yeah. And I scored a try over in Fiji actually on a tour of Canada and the Pacific nations from about 10 meters as well. So the four I remember, which was combined yardage along with the Scotland, for about 15 meters. But the one I scored against Italy was my favourite try, and it was on my mother's 50th birthday. I remember it, and it was a non-cap game, so that's never gone on the records.
Talk me through the try.
Oh well, I think I was on the left wing again. I caught the ball from a failed box kick through a dummy, a sidestep, and went under the stick. So you can still find it on YouTube if you want, but it's probably in black and white. But my point being is they seem to be awarding caps now for
retrospective caps.
Respective caps. So we need to start awarding respective tries, don't they?
At last, you could change your Wikipedia page.
Yeah. I'd have 22 caps and 5 tries. So
Do the players? Because a lot of the players, because this was a while back, do they all realise you play to this level? Because you've been such a part of the furniture.
Do you know what? I probably shouldn't say this story. So one of the Northampton Saints boys came over, who we have a dual reg with, and I was talking to him. He was just watching training. I think it was this year or maybe last year. He we're just chatting about full back play, and so he was a young fullback at Saints coming through, or his. And so we just chatted in about the game. He said, favorite rugby. What position do you play? That's what he said. It was quite humbling. And I said, believe it or not, fullback. And he looked me up and down as if I was a Martian.
Because I know there's some clips. I remember talking to Paul Turner about it, but there's a clip of him playing for Cowbridge. Was it
Newbridge?
Newbridge, Newbridge. And it's a clip because he's kicking with both feet, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that comes up quite a lot, so that's quite a handy clip for him. I mean, I'm not sure if he's boosting it himself, but the players certainly sort of come up, so it's quite handy to have a little bit of footage kicking around.
But he still did it at Amto because he'd always set up kickoffs over there, and he hadn't just told me the story. Some of the players told me the story, and they were all set up to receive a kickoff on the left, and he switch kicked it and found touch on the other side of the field, and no one had covered the space, so they all had a row because they weren't ready for it. So, but to be honest, talking about he's a good friend of mine, Paul. He was probably the hardest person to play against as a fullback because obviously kicking off both feet, in terms of trying to read which way he was going to kick it, was bloody impossible. So. He was a particular tough guy to play against. But although I was fortunate to play with him here for Bedford for 2 years, and he was a joy to play with.
Just before we get to the Bedford story, because I want to hear that one. Tell me about how you were balancing life. Because weren't you selling cranes or something when you were actually during the end of your time in Cardiff?
Yeah, that was the end. I started off as a sheet metal worker. So I did a apprenticeship with a company called Preston Thomas in Rummy, who used to build and manufacture fish and chip ranges. So I did sort of 8 years there and did a couple of other jobs in between. By the time I got to, just before I came here, I was working for Baldwin's Crane Hire Company, which is part-time, and obviously training with Cardiff as it was then. So, a bit of a juggle, but it's always been a juggle because I've always worked, so...
Yeah, did you run a garage at one point as well?
Yeah, actually, I was due to run the garage, and I broke my leg that season. I was due to start the garage, so it kind of helped in a way. They had something to occupy my mind. It was a 24-hour Shell service station on Caerphilly Road, which we had some
What year was this again?
94, 95. So...
I mean, that must have been funny, someone who's...
95, 96. So I had a whole 51 weeks out. So I did my leg in October 94, and then I think we took over the garage somewhere just after Christmas or around that time then. And had to work, obviously a young family, had to work Christmas Eves, and, me and the wife were sharing shifts, serving petrol and sweets and getting shoplifted and having drive-offs. And
we got broken leg.
And I had a broken leg. So I was hobbling around the forecourt with Greenpeace protesters and things like that as well. So again, lots of memories, good or bad. They're all memories, eh?
Well, exactly. Must have been glad to get back to the rugby when you got to deal with that sort of stuff. And then tell me about Bedford, because obviously the landscape was changing. You know, what tempted you? Paul was Paul one of the, because he was already there, wasn't he?
Yeah, I went on a crochet trip to Ireland to play against the select side down in Munster there, and and we just hit it off there. Got, shared a few beers over the weekend, and obviously played, and then we that following season then, or summer actually, I was due to have some metal work taken out of my leg, the final bits of the break I received, and
How did you break the leg?
through a tackle, just a sheer body weight up in Treorchy in October the 15th at 4:22. Yeah, I remember it well. Yeah.
How bad? How did it feel? Like I've never.
Well,
touch wood.
Well, it was a segment fracture, so it actually came out in a block. So one block like that wasn't compound. It came out in a block, and
Wow.
so I had to have a nail right through the middle of it and screwed top and bottom, which obviously took a while. And then when all our metalwork came out, I needed to have I played with a plate in it for a few months.
Did they ever say you wouldn't be able to play? Was there any of that?
No, there's never that. Well, not in my mind anyway. Obviously, I missed the World Cup, which obviously in South Africa in '95, which was a bit of a blow.
That was quite a big one.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it wasn't in Cardiff. Yeah,
It wasn't in Cardiff. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and I when I come back for that, I guess subconsciously, my mindset had changed a bit. It's obviously battling to get back, and had a few sort of dark days doing that, and obviously running the service station. And as just a conversation came around about coming to Bedford through Paul, and yeah, once done the figures, they stacked up really well. Bit daunting because we'd never been moved out to Cardiff, and I had a young family, so we took the plunge.
Because I always find, and I particularly found when I was living in Cardiff, everyone was real home loving. I remember a group of girls I was coaching, they were all sort of coming up to university, and like all of them went to university, I think, in Cardiff or nearby. They didn't want to go. I said, you could just go to Bristol, but no, that's too far there. Welsh people are really home loving, aren't they? So it must have been quite a big decision as well.
Yeah.
Especially as you're so tied into the fabric of
absolutely.
everything.
And I go back to London North, and I go in on a Sunday. It's the same people sat in the same seats as there was 25 years ago. There's obviously there's a few spaces missing now because obviously people have passed away, but it's still very much the same. People live in the same street, and some of them have never been out of the country, but that's what it is, and that's all they know. We took the plunge to come here, and I wouldn't be sat here now having this conversation if I hadn't done that. And thankfully, my wife supported me. The children were quite young anyway, so it wasn't so much of an uplift for them. The second time I come back that's a different story. But them 2 years were brilliant. We had a great group of people here. And we set about putting Bedford on the map, which we think we did. And that's the Allied Dunbar trophy.
Allied
there.
Dunbar. We'll put a closer up picture of this glamorous trophy.
Magnificent trophy.
Looks like a most improved under 14s trophy.
But it was a great 2 years. Obviously playing with Paul, we had Martin O'Fire came through, and Rory Underwood came the following season, and then Scott Murray started his real professional career here, and what a career he had in the end. Jeff Probyn was still propping up there at about 45 years of age. Big Norm Hadley was here. Junior Paramore, Rudy Strowley came through. Alistair Murdoch. So we had a fantastic group of players, and because we were from all parts of the world, it was kind of a new experience really. That the changing room was everything for us. We all went off to our different family environments back home, but when we come to the playing of the game, and whether it was at the home changing room or whether it was on the long bus trips back, we had a lot of fun and a few stories actually. So it was a great time.
But even before that, didn't you make history when you were the first transfer fee to be paid for a player? Or
yeah, well that was when I came here. Yeah, basically that came out of the wages I was supposed to have anyway. So instead of having. So it partly came out of my own wages, I suppose.
So it wasn't quite the Twiggermala to Newcastle fee. I think
no. Well, it was a fee. The club paid it, but I had less money in my contract, so that's just the way it was.
15K was it?
I think it was 15K. Yeah, so
bargain.
Yeah.
I mean, bargain. You think it started a relationship now that's kind of like you said, you wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for that. So.
No.
What was it like? Because it felt like there was with Frank Warren being, was that a figure? Was that someone you ever spoke to, or was it? Did Jeff Cook speak to you? What was
Yeah,
the presence
obviously,
of?
Paul and Paul Turner and Jeff Cook ran the rugby program, and but Frank was very visible. Yeah, and he used to come to nearly every home game and quite a few away games as well. And he was really engaging with the squad at the time, and yeah, it was all going pretty well. And he backed up what he said he would, and I think recently just said it cost him £2.5 million, which is quite an investment, wasn't it? Really, back in the day. But he certainly, Bedford was on the map in the '70s, early '80s probably, but then it sort of was a sleeping giant a little bit then, and he certainly reignited that and got the town back on the map. And you know, lots of good things have happened because of Frank's involvement here.
And if we look at that division, your first season there, we're talking about the Prem at the moment with the people getting involved in the investment. That literally was happening in the Champ that season as well, because you had Newcastle, obviously yourselves, Richmond, Coventry. Tell me about sort of how big that season was, and the players and everything that was involved.
Yeah, it was a big season, and we had some great battles. The Newcastle game here was in front. We actually had 7,500 in that day, and it was one of my great memories as a rugby player. Actually, that particular day, because they come British Lion laden along with Inga Tigamala and people like that, Pat Lamb. So they were fully laden, and we had quite a bit of exposure off Sky as well at the time. So beneath the surface, there was probably us and Coventry and sort of Richmond and Newcastle were the outstanding teams at the time, full of great talent. So yeah, it was a good season, but obviously there was tough battles to be had elsewhere as well. Going up to Rotherham then wasn't particularly pretty. They were on a tight pitch. They were always a fierce bunch to play against.
Same pitch, I think. Still,
Yeah, same pitch. Yeah, so been up there a few times, and
because I think in that season, I think the top attendance was 8,000, but ones like you're talking was much more commonplace. There was a lot bigger attendance.
well, that was the biggest one we ever had here. I think
Yeah.
obviously we had a big temporary standard along the this side of the pitch here, and there was, I think it was us 3,000 that held, but that was the most, I think, of that season we ever got in.
What was the game like?
Yeah, it was a hell of a game. We were fortunate. We took the lead. The local lad Ben Whetstone scored a try, and Martin of Fire famously scored the sort of match sealing try. We got momentum, got ahead of them, and then here they come, and we were hanging on a little bit at the end. But yeah, it was a great feeling. And then obviously the year after, without them in the league, we managed to win it quite comfortably. With probably the same group of people and a few additions.
When did you start to think you might leave? What was happening? Because there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, it's well documented. Frank got into a situation with Don King and had his assets frozen, and there was the money had dried up really. So with a young family, I just felt this may be the time to look for a little bit more security and get near home. And that's when I took the opportunity to go back to Cardiff and kind of finish my career. But obviously I was fortunate again there through Geraint John and Lynn Howes. They offered me a coaching opportunity firstly with the under-21s and then into the academy. And so I cut my teeth there while still playing. And again, as it happens, 2005, opportunity knocks, and I had a phone call from Bedford and Jeff Irvine, the chairman, and all it took was a coffee and a cake and Newbury services, and I was back to Bedford with probably my daughter kicking and screaming because she was a teenager by then. But look, she's settled into life in Bedford, and she's a teacher now, and she comes and watches the game every week. So I think she's probably lived in Bedford for more of her life now than she did in Cardiff.
Yeah. Can't dislike it too much then.
No.
Did you think you'd go into coaching? Was it just because you got that taste of it when you were involved with the Cardiff sort of pathway?
No, not at all. Because it was.
Didn't you set that up? Was it like?
Yeah, I was. Initially part of that.
Yeah.
That when the game went regional, they had obviously set the academies up through the clubs. But certainly it never crossed my mind when I was playing until the latter stages, and suddenly there became a career within coaching because everyone was getting paid, and obviously playing a fullback, I mostly watched the game, didn't I? Go by because you could see the whole picture in front of you. So I had a good handle on how games would shape during the game, and I thought I could impact that pretty easily in coaching. But it's never been easy. It's the toughest job in the world to obviously get that knowledge from there across to players who all have different learning abilities, and I play a wonderful game in my brain, but it doesn't always transfer. And that is the challenge of coaching. For me, that's what I've strived over the years to try and get better at, is to what's in the air, to get it out verbally, and or whether it's verbally, sorry, or whether it's through video, etc. To the players to see how I see the game played.
Because you must have things, presumably you've had to adapt styles to a degree because of the players you've got, because of budgets and other things. But what have been the consistency of what you wanted to see in your teams?
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, we sell a club on three things to players. Really, the first thing is player development, because I've start the conversation, we're talking about going to the Premiership, but the reality is, if you look at us this current moment, we're not going there, and obviously the drawbridge has been pulled up until we
Get bought by Universal.
So the next we offer is a player development opportunity. So we spend a bit of time helping lads achieve what they want to achieve and play at the highest level they can. So that's the first thing we kind of try and sell it on. We've got great record of that over the years. And secondly, it's I always wanted this place to be the best place to be on Saturday at 3:00, or on Friday night at 7:45. And to do that, you've got to play good rugby and get the lads to express themselves. So they're the first two things, and then lastly, it's enjoyment, really, because the environment I started with is more like what it is now, and that's players work from 9 till 4, or 9 till 5, or 8 till 4. Some 7 till 3 or whatever, and want to park their troubles at the gate and come in, and we'll have a bit of fun, and we'll enjoy our training. We'll work hard, and we'll enjoy ourselves on and off the pitch. So it's just about creating that environment, and the one thing has changed, that if it's the player with the number 1 on his back, or 15 or 23, whatever, they got a license to get their hands on the ball and express themselves. So there's a certain freedom that I want to play with.
Was there ever opportunities to go back home again over the last?
Yeah, there was a couple of conversations I had back home, but again, it's similar to my career, really. It's been all about timing, whether it was breaking my leg, coming to Bedford, going back to Cardiff, coaching. 2005, coming to coach Bedford. It's always been about timing, really, and a lot of people said I had no pace at fullback, but I relied a lot on timing with that as well. So, yeah, it just wasn't the right time, the right feel. A couple of then conversations happened, but I always felt like I had a job to finish here, and I still do.
What are the next goals for Bedford? Because I mean, right now, obviously, it's quite exciting. But when you sit down with, presumably sit down with the guy, the board, the CEO, and those guys, what are the plans?
Yeah, I think that we always want to maintain that sustainability piece, and kind of live by the sense of achievement, live by our values. So we want to enjoy our work. We want to be sustainable. And want to show a bit of pride and passion, of the club and of the town, really, and just keep that that connection piece across our supporters and the players. I think we do that well. We got Dean Adamson's testimonial dinner tonight. There's over 200 people coming to the marquee. Shows what great esteem he's held in. I did never think I'd be coaching the greatest try scorer in Bedford history, which is, in this day and age, is pretty phenomenal, really. And, as much as he's proud of that, we're all proud of him as well for being able to achieve that.
And talk about some of the other places. There's been a lot of players that have gone through here on their way to caps or becoming great. Tell me about a few other players that have come through in your time that stand out.
Yeah, look, we've always, loosely said we're, played a part in Dan Cole's
Yeah.
future and Owen Farrell. But the reality is they only played a handful of games here, but they'll put the jersey on. But it's more people like probably Billy Twelvetrees and Mark Atkinson who sort of stepped down from Premiership stuff and come and played here. Billy only shortly for a year, and Mark for a couple of seasons. So it's probably they're the guys who we take most pleasure. And someone like a Will Chudley was a a young lad here. Another remarkable career at the top level. Didn't necessarily get capped, but I don't think that's what it's all about. He's had a successful career. And then you got your Josh Bassett's, had a good career, and Ali Price, who, God, if you told me he's going to be a British Lion, I would have, I'd have walked out the room. But he was such a, happy-go-lucky kid here, but a real competitor on the field, and what he's done with his career is nothing short of remarkable. So, we're pretty proud of them boys, and sort of several others who've gone on to play Premiership. Duncan Taylor was another lad we had here as a 17, 18-year-old who's gone on to have a good career with Scotland as well.
Because anyway, we talked about the days when Plymouth compete and all those guys, and then it was really known for its forward play, wasn't it? That's why a player would develop in the Champ, because they'd get kicked around by gnarly forwards. But what are the benefits of these guys? Why is the Champ such a good proving ground for young players coming through that are perhaps on their way, hopefully, to greater things?
Yeah, look, I think our model's changed slightly since COVID, really, because we got a lot of young players from Northampton now, so our ability to nurture and develop younger players is quite hard. But what we've got now is a core of old experienced guys who are not old, experienced, because they'll have me for being old. Experienced players who are transitioning out of rugby. So we've done that quite well, help them into the workplace, which is again something we're pretty proud of as a club, being able to provide that that transition piece. Because at the end of the day, they're all humans, and they've got a long time after rugby. So we take pride in that. Lee Dixon was a really good example. Paul Tupai was a good example of that. Who'd all had great pro careers, and I've got some great careers ahead of him now as family men. So
because there's always been that. That's what's also been a great thing. Is like going back to Paul, when he had his Tongans in that season coming up through from Nat 1 as well. So it was great to be able to see these guys who were still going, that had been internationals as well. What about those players that you?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was going to come on to that. Was I learned the game. Probably I learned more in 1 year playing for Cardiff second team, the Rags, than I did at any stage of my career, because I was playing alongside some old ass rugby players who shaped the game and helped me understand the whole picture of things, and I learned a lot of them. And this is what the situation we got now. So playing alongside of Paul Tupai, Lee Dixon, you can't help but learn off them. Probably learn more off your peers than you would off a coach, I'd say, because they're next to you in the trenches. So that's what works for us. And we've still got some aspirational players in that middle bracket of 23 to sort of 27, 28. And they're still learning the game, and you can't help but learn off. Today, we look, Alex Day, Will Maisie, Michael LeBourgeois is a great example of that, of nurtured and developed some of the young Northampton Saints boys. So in that sense, it is the proving ground, because they're learning off some good, really good rugby players.
And so, and for you, do you think this is you at Bedford now? Another 10 years? Would you ever quit?
I did my best to not answer that earlier.
I know you did.
Who knows? Like I said, is this my last year? Well, I've already recruited for next year, so I suppose I better carry on. So, I think I'll know when the time is right. Look, I've been, for years, I talked about this legacy piece earlier, and I'm trying to nurture coaches. I tried it with Alex Ray, got him back here from Jersey, and I thought he'd be the guy who'd take over from me, but he got an opportunity at Coventry, and fair play to him, it's closer to home, did the right thing, and he's flourishing there. So I'm trying to do the best, with Michael LeBourgeois now. Got a young forwards coach in Cameron Boone, who's doing a brilliant job. He's only 27, after retire early from rugby. So I'm trying to help and nurture the next guy to take over from me, or even if I just take a backward step and leave them, sort of headed up in a couple of years, perhaps. not quite yet, but maybe in a couple of years. And I just I just enjoy being around people and rugby players in particular. I think the crack we have off the field, as I said, that's been one of the strengths of the group. Is despite the losses, setbacks we've had, there's a good camaraderie amongst them to put it right the following week, and we do that through a bit of humour, but a lot of it's down to hard work and trust amongst each other.
I think it's always the humour with rugby. I think if you've been involved in rugby in that team, sometimes you've got to remember that doesn't work everywhere else. That's what I usually find. The familiarity and the general Mickey taking, shall we say, doesn't always translate to sort of more refined settings.
No, yeah. What goes on in a team room stays there, really. Yeah.
Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having us. Good luck with the rest of the season. I hope you win the league and you get bought by Universal and get turned into a Hollywood movie.
That'll be good.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers.